Hello, everyone, and welcome to the broadcast. I see Drew is already with us, apparently returning from Kroger. Hey there, Drew, and welcome. It's another coding day today. We're going to start something perhaps ill-advised, but interesting nonetheless. We'll see how that goes. Before we do, let's check in with the kitties. 4-mile round trip. I mean, it's unfortunate that it's a little far to walk ultimately, but that's still a reasonable distance. I mean, like by bike, that's a reasonable distance. Not ideal, but it's I don't know, are you located in the US? I don't know if Kroger is outside the US. I know the Kroger has different names in different places in the US, but I don't know if it's outside the US. But at least in the US, walkability is a real problem. Access to facilities from residential areas is a real problem. You need a car too often, you know? But let's see here. We have Ember, Sky, Mason, and Sherbet, and Sammy. Any sign of Molly? Molly's under my feet. I mean, that's good. I've lived in range of shopping areas, and that's real nice to have the option of, you know, a quick jog out to to get some stuff. And hey there, Tass. So, let's see. We're going to put that there and there. I was thinking about it, and I had kind of tossed the idea over to Tass to talk about it a little bit. But here, let's start at the beginning. So in the game, the core game object, we are currently setting up these messages, and then we pass them into explicit handle message functions in the like. But this has resulted in kind of a daisy chain of explicit behaviors that we have to deal with. So when I pass it to base entity manager, it's going to go into handle message. We are going to effectively switch on which message we got. And then we are going to do some stuff ourselves and then pass that message to all of our sub-entities. We're still probably going to have some daisy chaining going on in that an entity cares about the entity manager's messages, not the overall game state messages. But that's still okay. That's still okay. What I want to avoid are blocks like... Oh, where is it? Time passed. Here we go. Where we just like, okay, I got a message. I'm going to relay it to all of my children. This is an explicit call and is vulnerable to these entity removal things. Where because I have pulled that entity, if I try to invoke it during the loop, if I'm dealing with, hey, maybe this entity went away, then it's still possible that it will get this message unless I have properly sequentially dealt with it. We still want to be careful about when messages are received, but I don't want to have to always iterate over them. And I also don't want to have to propagate this handle message pattern all over the place for every single thing to handle any eventuality. I put another way, I don't want everything to be able to call this message arbitrarily. Doing that would lead to some spaghetti. The bad sort. Tangentially, spaghetti has always been another one of those things that the type of spaghetti I like is kind of trash spaghetti, I guess. It's kind of like Mexican food. Whenever anybody's like, oh, let's go get Mexican, for me, that's Taco Bell. And I don't mean that's what I associate with it. I mean, that's the kind that I like. It's, I use, store brand noodles, often broken to fit into the pot. The only sauce I like to use is the type that is often described as, quote, sauce flavored with meat. Tomatoes have probably been like, the factory probably has some tomatoes on a plinth in the center of the process so the sauce can become familiar with what it's supposed to look like. Hey there, Code. Welcome back. But that no actual like tomato or vegetable remains in an identifiable form in the sauce process. So Code, what we're going to do today is we're going to restructure how we're dealing with events, which is going to be exciting. Now, I can't recall, can we do... I think if it's explicitly an interface, we can do multiple inheritance, right? I don't know, Tass, you're here. C#. Is there a clean way for us to actually do multiple interfaces? I thought C# only let you have one parent class and one interface. But I might be mistaken. In fact, I'm probably mistaken. Okay, unlimited interfaces. Okay, we can do this more cleanly. So Code, how to brain. So last time, or at least the most recent thing we were working with. Oh wait, I think I missed something here. What are you top? Cute. Cute, Drew. So we have the general idea for collision of objects falling out of the sky, essentially. We have what amounts to a z-axis now. Right now, it's pretty crude. It's not really meant to be that there is height-based collision. It's just if you're on the ground, you can collide. If you're in the air, you can't. So we've got that. The thing we've been working with most recently is to try to get... I'm going to say wall collision, but ultimately like steering/avoidance collision. Like, I don't want the player to be able to walk through a wall. I don't want enemies to walk through walls, and I don't ultimately want enemies to walk through walls or the player. The player is kind of optional in that way. I don't ultimately care if an enemy walks through the player. Because if you get to that point, you're in a lot of trouble. But if the entity can't walk fully through the player, then we avoid circumstances where a fast enemy is like stuck to the player's feet, which I think is wonky. That is a interesting statement transition, Drew. A not even innuendo-laced statement followed by, I'm eating goldfish. Goldfish is not my favorite snack. But in any event, so we tried using Godot body-based collision to handle walls and some of the entity overlap. But that proved to like double the physics processing cost, which is unacceptable. So we're going on a couple of fronts right now. Is one, we're going to be experimenting with directly using the physics server again, which allows us to cull out all of the node handling on the Godot side and instead just let its physics process deal with it. Ultimately, that will be the same processing. We're going to start with just the areas and not the body-based collision. I have a thought on how to do that, but perhaps better, we'll see. But it will remove the nodes from that, which should reduce it. Our behavior chain is still our biggest cost, and there may be things we can do about that down the road. But for the time being, getting it so that collision is nice and trim and predictable, great. My general thought on wall collision and entity collision is potentially to use steering, but it will depend on if we can get which of the kind of behaviors we can cleanly get. Might have to look into flocking algorithms, but that's very similar to the kind of steering behaviors. We'll see ultimately. But for today, I figured I would, skid turn into the ditch a little bit and say, but what if I just rewrite events? So right now, we have a bunch of different types of messages. Some of them are entirely I exist kind of messages, and some of them are nested for the purposes of conveying additional information. Like an end step message still has the time passed message of that whole step. So every step contains time passed. And that information might be useful. This carries things like delta. But end step might eventually need to have other information relevant to ending the whole tick. That kind of thing. And different objects care about different things. So, such as, heart message is not a good example because heart message is a sequential message. But time passed is a prime example. Is whenever time passed happens, it ends up propagating down from the game physics tick to every one of the handlers, to every one of the entities. It goes everywhere. But some of the entities might ultimately not care about it. And thinking on it, we'll cross that bridge later. I had a thought on how to further refine some of this to reduce some requirement for order of operations. But we need to be cautious of that. We need to be real cautious of that, actually. So that's a maybe later thought. But in particular, in Entity Manager, we get handle message. And inevitably what this will do is it will go through and say, okay, I got this message. I'm going to do stuff with this message. And then I will get some sort of result. I do need to figure out how to get the replies to happen properly. But I'd like to move away from explicitly calling handle message and move towards a time past event happened on the game, on the entity manager, that kind of thing. It is returns are the tricky part, because each object is potentially going to have variants on it. I think we'll have to see how this do. But I think we can still get a lot of this. Because some events we need to know if they were acted on. And that's actually another element. Where is it? Game message reply. This is a very specific use case. This is relevant during the event, the behavior chain. Because with the behavior chain, we need to know if something happened. So I believe heart messages and any message handling inside of the behavior chain needs game message replies. So we might be able to limit some of that stuff down, since again, behaviors handle messages completely differently. They are sequential, and that's why they need replies. Hearts are similar. Entity health is similar. Let me see if I can actually spot where I put that. Health. Okay, entity health. Yeah. So the when a heart receives particular messages, it is going to do different stuff with it. So add and remove heart is overall descriptive. You pull health on or off from the end of the chain. But if we get these health messages, those get run down the chain of hearts. And end step is actually clean stuff up. So heart remove, heart add, that kind of stuff, those are... they are technically ordered, but I don't think it's actually going to matter, because it doesn't matter if the entities are out of order. It just matters that that entity got that message, process it. And I don't know that I want to deal with the nuance of very sequential damage messages that might influence the health total at the same time that damage is being calculated. Those two things are unlikely to add together because enemies don't get their hearts messed with, their health messed with as far as totals. Or at least I don't intend for that. That's complexity that I don't think the player needs to deal with. But the player might. But the player is likely to get and remove hearts outside of the direct battle. They're likely to have their health change during that process. So I could have discrete messages for heart add, heart remove, as well as even like health message. But once you get a health message, it runs down the chain, and that's where the replies matter. Right. It's damage messages. It doesn't really matter. And frankly, movement messages don't matter as much. If I can put them in sequence afterwards, if I can say behavior 3 just called out that it added a movement piece, then that's fine, because I can always sort them afterwards. And there are very specific things that can happen, you know? There's like all prior movement is invalidated, stop now kind of events that can happen in the behavior chain. But if during a collision processing step, if we were to go in an arbitrary order, and technically we kind of do, because the collisions come in an arbitrary order, it doesn't really matter if an entity gets hit by the thing on the left or the thing on the right first. It gets hit. And given the gameplay that we're going for, we don't really care otherwise. Now, similarly, in this handle health change, I don't care about the reply here. Actually, I kind of do. So this is the nuance territory. Is, let's say a bullet collides with a blob, and that blob has taken a hit recently, is in the midst of an iframe. If we make it so that the blob actually takes the hit when it has an iframe, it will take no damage and the bullet will be consumed. So, you know, the entire shotgun blast is eaten up by one blob. This is not out of the question, but I feel like from a player power perspective, from a player's perceived power and utility of their weaponry, having a spread of shots eaten up by one target when one pellet would have brought them down in this type of game is not satisfying. At least for me, it wouldn't be. Because the density of enemies lends itself to there's a decent chance that there's somebody in front. So if that hit doesn't land, if that bullet doesn't do damage, we need to know what happened with that event. So I need to be able to say, this event that was triggered, this message, had this result. So when I'm going down the health change event, I can say this particular message was handled. That's part of the reply. Was acted on. Was acted on means something happened as a result of this this thing. Damage was taken. Damage was negated. It doesn't matter. A thing happened with the message. We did something with it. But like an iframe is, I ignore that message. I did nothing with it. That can be relevant. Time passed, it's not relevant. Start and end step, it's not relevant if something like that happens. But health change can be. But health change is a very discrete operation. That is a, you get this done to you. So I think we can wrap particular messages. We can have particular interfaces for, I can accept that. Like, I can accept messages of this type. So like an enemy can take health change messages. An enemy might not care about heart add removes. So when I would be looking to send that message, you would generally say, you know, if the entity is a damageable entity, then that implies it can take health change, and I can pass the, send health change message method for that kind of message. But for things like time passed, I want to have a time passed event and corresponding interfaces for things that emit time passed and for things that can handle time passed. For the most part, handle time passed is just going to define a fixed function for this is where time passed is supposed to go for pattern purposes. If it's a, receives time passed or something like that, or listens to time passed interface, there is a handle time passed method on that interface. That would mean this is where that message is supposed to go. So if you have a I listen to time passed, I have a method that I can have that called into. But maybe not. We ultimately just need the event. We just need the event. So that is largely what the interface is. Hey there, Lunar. Let's see. Did we add a canned food factory minigame where you send out poisoned food to weaken your enemies yet? I'm reminded of the old, way early game Burger Time and its siblings, where the whole game mechanic was to create gigantic burgers while killing off animate food enemies by walking on top of the various pieces of a giant burger and having them fall down at the right time. Which is, I'm reminded because of the whole poisoned food, because I feel like that whole operation is very unsanitary. Okay, so let's start with the most plausible one. So, with time passed, the whole point of a time passed is going to be to relay it along. So there's a couple of layers. The game itself would send a time passed message. So it would have a delegate for that. I'm sorry, it would... Yes, it would have an actual event object on it that is, I emit this. Yeah. And then other things that care about that can look at it, verify that it is a emits time passed, and can subscribe to that corresponding event. And do whatever it needs to with it. Okay. So in theory, we've actually got an interface coming up. Oh, hey. See, IDE being helpful. It's just a public interface. And this would be a... event. Yeah. So from within it, we should just be able to raise the time past event wherever we need to. I could add a... This would be a defined function, though, so it wouldn't really be an interface for it, but... You know, it's... In theory, you would have a fixed way to emit it, but I wonder if we can get away with this. But we'll start here. So in our game object, and oop. There we go. So if we emit time past, we know that we have a time past event called time past. And we can do this with a couple of them. Lunar, if I wanted to do something like as directed by that amplifies, that makes, you know, essentially everything explodes, would be to more focus on enemies explode. So anytime something spawns, pin a death behavior to it. A trigger event that essentially says, if I die, blow up. Or something to that effect. So now the player has to worry that if that things will blow up if they get close. Is that viable in a Survivor style game? I don't know. Okay. So this is going to get into the scenario of dependency injection, though. Because the game object is not readily available to everybody. The game object is essentially part of the core handling. I could make it available. And do we actually make it available? Let me just double check. It's been a while. Oh, no, the game is available. Okay, never mind. Eventually, I need to circle around and do actual dependency injection. This is kind of a Godot hack for it. But it's a hack in the sense that I'm not being discreet about the services that things need. I would still probably have something like this to initialize the injection. But making it so that the classes have, as part of their definition, would mean that I can actually have that cleaner. Exactly, Taz. They become hidden dependencies, which make it harder to track down where you need to make adjustments if you need to change one of those things. Because right now, there is the global services object has the startup resource and has the instantiation of all of these things. Inside the game object, we use that in order to create the initial scene. Right here. When This gets called, all of these packed scenes get instantiated. They exist as free-floating nodes. Then we go through and we pin them all to the game tree. But everything can find them like this. And that is something that I ultimately want to avoid. But we'll get there. We'll get there. Okay, so then I go into Entity Manager. And an Entity Manager also emits time passed. Just so. The reason it does this is now every entity can subscribe to this message. Like by default, and an entity will look to the Entity Manager and say, give me the time passed event. It gets relayed because we still want the ability to control when those go out. But it doesn't actually have to be, is the thing. Doesn't have to be. The entities could get the central one. Because they don't actually care anytime. So let's step back and show. So if we really wanted to get the spirit of As Directed By, because it's a Michael Bay reference, if you really wanted to have an As Directed By modifier in this type of game, it's less about arbitrary explosions as far as things that you fire explode. It is much more about objects blowing up. So enemies, arbitrary, like you said, like the candlesticks, the enemies, those kind of things would be prone to exploding. But you generally don't blow up the Griblies. So the henchmen don't just explode. A car would explode. A gas station, no matter where the bullet hits, is going to explode in a giant fireball. So you would be focused on destructible objects being a danger, and you would probably incorporate more of them. Additionally, a class of enemy could also be indicated to be explosive, but I would generally go for, there are red barrels everywhere kind of thing. Additionally, if we really want to make the reference, then the camera should shake constantly. And I don't mean just like vibrate, I mean it should dart around. Then you can get the full shaky cam plus explosions experience. Okay. So, the Entity Manager gets a time passed message. It doesn't do anything with it. It passes it to the entities. They all get that message. The start step is a trickier one. And even time passed is a trickier one here. And we might still do the relay for this reason. Is there is a specific order to this process. When the start step happens, the Entity Manager is doing its clean out. We don't want entities to get messages if they are being purged. So during the start step, we might remove them. As a result, they end up desubscribing to all of the relevant messages. Hey, Marcia. We are in the middle of a bit of an esoteric sequence. We're doing some refactoring of how we handle our event chain. And I think we're still going down the path I was initially thinking, and that's that there is kind of a daisy chain. It's some things can listen to the global one. So all of the services / handlers are the ones that are listening to the game central tick. They care when the game does this. But entities care when the entity manager emits time passed. And this is the I did a thing with this message, you may now do a thing. That might be how we dodge the reply. Again, we'll get to that when we get there. Is the game broken? I just want to see if the game's broken. Game's broken. Okay. Is it actually broken by? Are we trying to create a raw physics server collider? Okay, I should actually look at the stack instead of stopping constantly. Oh. That is during the whole JSON handling thing where we're getting the various types set up. And because this is a catalogable, it comes into existence. Oh, our body handling isn't working right now, which is why we're getting the send the yarn ball into orbit kind of behavior going on here. This will make it very slow, but should fix it. Will get very slow in now. So we can see it's actually not bad when I am slightly ahead of those blobs. It's not great because they're still bumping me now and again and causing the collision. But if we get far enough away from them, it's not terrible. It's still not good. But the minute I touch them, it costs a great deal. And clearly we can see that there is some sort of like heavy glitch happening there. So this is, again, something that we want to clean up. Let me get... Won't do that just yet. There might be a way in the JSON handling to skip that. Like, let's check where the kitties are. Ember left. Let's do the reliable here. Ember's getting a snack. Switch over to that camera there. There tends to be 2 or more of them on that. Okay, we've got that there. Let's get into the base collider and rip out those bodies, because we can't use the body handling in our collider nodes anyway. Right here. This can't be. All right, break all the things. We're going to leave resolve physics in here. That's probably going to go. I am ripping this out because it is a dead end. It's... We cannot use physics bodies given the number of things we're dealing with. Here we go. Indeed, Tass. R.I.P. physics bodies. Just the fact that we lose that much processing rate. Oh, okay. That is in the entity. Which is in currently, and I haven't moved it yet, over here. In our handle message. Hey, Daniel. There we go. Hey, we're working on a Vampire Survivors style game. At the moment, we're working on physics handling. Yeah, you can see the real difference here. Well, it's hard for you to see the difference there between my ear and the stream Chrome. But we're, let's say, 250 frames per second at 800 objects is way better than 12 to 30 at 800 objects because of the physics bodies. So we shan't be doing that. Okay. Let's get that in there. like I said, if we want to get avoidance, we might end up with flocking behavior going forward, either steering or flocking. I'll need to find some good sources on how that is done efficiently. Because our raw movement is not predetermined. And a lot of the flocking relies on that, but I might be able to dodge it by starting with enemies and the player can't collide with walls and each other in certain ways. So that may allow it to work cleanly, because the player and the enemies frequently have very clear movement, but it's a starting point. It's a starting point nonetheless. Now it's no need to make the change unless I really need to at the moment. Okie dokie. But yes, Daniel, this is a heavy coding stream, but it's not expected that you know how to code, how to develop a game, or really even have a full background on what we're doing in this project. It's my first game dev project, first major solo project of this nature. Using this programming language as a major project, that kind of thing. So we're all learning together. We're learning Godot, we're learning nuances of C#, talking through design methodologies and choices. It's not so much collaborative as it is communal. We all bang our heads on the keyboard together. If you've never experienced it, you'll be able to see elements of the software development behavior, including the staring blankly at the screen, muttering to yourself because reality is collapsing around you for some reason. The how does it do that and why phenomenon. Okay, so instead of we've had a few, it doesn't make sense why that's happening, and then it suddenly stops happening kind of scenarios in this project so far, and that's always a ton of fun. Okay, so this is not a safe time for us to subscribe. Really, it's during our ready. These are all nodes. Let's check our base entity manager and verify, do we already have a ready? Because if we do, we need to account for that. We have exit tree, which is good. We'll need that. So universally, entity managers need to have a public. Can we get away with this? Okay, good. We'll be able to do this. Okay, you're close, auto suggest. You're close. Okay. It is close, but because it doesn't it's game time passed. Pretty sure it does. Does it? Oh, okay, it doesn't. It doesn't. Okay, we'll need to get that in there. Catalog. Game. The game is mine. Okay, we instantiate it, we set it into service. It knows, everything else now knows, is able to know that the game is this thing. Eventually, we're going to get around to dependency injection for that. Eventually. At the moment, it's just a relay. Yes, can't be private. It's to be protected or public. So then in base entity manager, we get a time passed. Right now, we're getting time passed and we're rattling through each of these and relaying the message along. That is not really what we want to do, though. We want to be able to get to some more of these. Hello, Molly. This will break everything for a little bit. There is not. No. Okay. Okay, so then whenever an entity is created, we need to get it to attach to the entity manager's time passed message. So when we go to our initialize enemy, and we are just going to call handle message for now. Okay, and then when we are removing the entity, let's invoke remove. Are we doing that? That. get to that in just a moment. Gonna take a quick break. I will be right back in a couple minutes. And we're back. Every now and then, got to get up and stretch the limbs a little bit. What's the matter, Molly? Molly's being cranky. Okay, so now what we need to do is when the entity is created, we need to subscribe to an event. We doing plus equals. In theory, we're not worried about some of these events going away, because once the entity is gone, we don't care about those messages. But there is a point, so let me see. Message, we do a startup. We call remove entity, go to. Oh, okay, So one of the fun aspects is going back through my own code and being like, either, okay, where did I put this? Or what was I thinking about this? I'll get to it later. Okay, we tell everything that we're being removed here. This is the actual removal process. Everything gets cleaned out here. Services, entity manager, time passed is equals. But I already had a method for this. There. There's some extraneous behavior going on in this. So we subscribe to this event here. Have our raw health data, or once it's set, we instantiate it, and then we add hearts to it. But this is when we're setting it. We're getting it configured. So this is only a really wonky error case. In general, by the time the entity is initialized, that's when we're going to add this event. Yeah, I'm changing a bunch of things at once. No, you don't. Quit it. Just encapsulating these because I want to have one spot where I'm messing with them. Because I need them all paired. This is probably going to go away as well. This whole entities to trigger structure. But we'll see. It is currently quite vestigial. Okay, 1, did we break it? 2, did we break it? Ah, okay. This is at the time the catalog is created. Molly, there you go. Okay, so it can't quite be like this. We can't put it in initialize entity. Because there are entities that exist outside of the entity manager. It is not active just because we initialize it. It only becomes active once we've actually copied it and it's ready for use. So it's only the entity manager that should be activating them, because that's the thing that puts them actually in existence. And then in the entity manager, when we add entities, base entity manager, category, add entity internal, there, we say entity activate. Okay, we're not moving, but that is potentially the time passed not properly happening. Child, accumulated delta, time passed. It's because we are not raising our event. Okay. So right here in Entity Manager, we're going to not pass that, and instead we are going to say that. This is not perfect. Okay. So that is all of the entities having their own event for time passed, or their own handler for the time passed event of the entity manager. We do it this way because the entity manager needs to handle its start and stop events before its entities do. I think this is fine because the entities only exist within the world of the entity manager as far as processing goes. If the entity manager goes away, entities cease to be. Mostly. Okay, so then we go into entity. So we have our time passed, and then when we're handling, right now, when we handle time passed, we're just passing it to handle message. Right here. So if we're active, we pass messages to health. And then we will pass time passed, which will do just this. And then behaviors get the message. The entity doesn't care about the reply from behaviors. The behaviors just influence it as it goes along. I'm sorry, the behaviors use that message as it goes along. So we're going to keep this as it is. Game message. Yeah. So this is the relevant piece here during the loop, is if the message wasn't consumed. We won't need that and send messages to behaviors. End step and time passed don't need a was acted on. So if the message is not consumed, we'll move it on to here. We are going to continue this pattern, though. We're not necessarily really going to use this, but not really the best way to phrase it. Internals is a thing, but this is, in this case, I'm using it to say, let's just call it. Let's call it components for now. It's consumed. I can put just a reply in these. We are doing this to reduce kind of prior knowledge of how these flow. And to make it easier to alter this chain. Okay, so when we get a time passed message, we are going to send message to components here. Oh, that's tricky. No, we should always do this. Okay, this is fine. Entity manager, time passed. We are going to send message to components, time passed. We're not going to call handle message. We are going to do explicitly what handle message does to this one. And it's going to... This is actually... We didn't want to do that anyway. Because that can have implications for the first behavior that happens. Handle message. So time passed message is never going to get here. And we can actually do... Send message to components. Message. This is not perfect because, like, this part is not perfect because the heart handling can eat the message before we would do other handling. But I don't have a use case where that would happen, because the heart eating the message is only currently relevant to behaviors. Run it again. Did we break it? Okay. All of those entities were struck by that. Okay. Let's see. So we're getting a health message. We send the message to components. Here. That won't do. We need... There's a little lurch there where we create 800 entities at once. Okay. We are instantiating it. We have a source is a yarn ball. The target is an enemy. We go up. We are going to send a health message into the target here. So we have our health message. It's not an end step message. We're going to send to components. So we have a new reply, which has nothing in it. We're going to send to health. Step over. Our message type is we have health. It's over, and the reply says it was acted on and it was consumed. So we're going to step out of here. If we go into behaviors, it is going to skip over because it's a consumed message. We go up, we go back up. So this is a target then own health. So the reply was acted on. No. How was it not acted on? Non-end step. This isn't returning it. So then whenever we call this, should be dot merge. Yeah, this is one of our tricky elements here. Is again, some messages can be stopped. Specifically, things like health messages, technically time passed messages can be stopped going down a behavior chain. But it's only once they reach the behavior chain or the heart chain, which is this is where it matters. So we still want the handling to deal with replies, but we need to be very cognizant of, while we're building this, is this a message, is the message at this layer stoppable? Because if it is, events aren't great for it. It was acted on and it was consumed. Collision limit is 1. We're now waiting. Our collision count is now set to 0. This is effectively collision iframes, or at least if the object were to survive this, then it will only hit this many things during this collision. So now we do our self-damage, and the reply is, once again, it is acted upon and consumed. Let's do this without the breakpoints. We should see, when the yarn ball hits a blob, we should see just the yarn ball bounce back out. Yes. Okay. Okie dokie. So now entities will get their event from effectively all the way up from game, but it gets relayed down step by step. All right, so then we look at the game, and the next message that we've got is going to be the start step. So we're going to go back to our messages. We're going to do the same thing. Public. We're not doing folder structure pattern. We have a okay, and then our game is going to have that. With that, we now have a start step event. And in the actual game's logic, when we do our physics tick, which is underscore physics process, We are setting up our start step message. So now instead of calling start step on entity manager, we are going to say start step that it is start step. Okay. This would break everything, but we're going to get there. We're going to get there. We are going to say entity manager. We're going to check for entity real quick. It's not looking for a start step. It just says one time passes. Start step may ultimately be useful, but entity doesn't currently care about start step. Base entity manager during handle message. It does care about start step. So this one, when it sets itself up, we need to add that event. I think we added ready. Oh no, entity manager. This is .game start step equals start step void. By default, start step does nothing. So then in our base entity manager, really are going to need to clean a lot of this up, but affected override game start step. Call it base. Then we go into our handle message. And we're going to go through all of this. And we're going to move that up to our start step. All of this. Back down to our handle mess. And then we are going to doesn't have a send message. Entities will get the start step, but they don't necessarily use it. So, but we may need to give it to them. So we are going to, in entity manager, we're also going to emit start step. dot at the interface, then in our base start step, right now, time passed message can be overridden, but we would already have invoked that. Okay, so by default, without modification, this will say start step dot invoke with start step. And then in our base entity manager, when we get a start step, we need to do all of this first. Because anything that cares about the start step after this, any entity that would care about it, anybody listening, we need them to be ripped out if they're not supposed to be there anymore. So we do our stuff before the base handles. Is this great? No. But we know anybody listening to the entity manager is dependent on entities, whether it's when they're added, removed, something like that. So we need to make sure that any entity that should go away or should appear is already present, or that's already been handled by them. Sammy has come to sit with me and is thus obstructing the left third of my vision and occupying my left hand entirely. I can move my right hand, but if it's not being moved in order to give her the proper attention, then she will squirm around and yell at me. Is that right? Yeah, I know. Okay. Still seems to be functioning. Start that again. I want to pay attention because sometimes bounce movement is a little hard to see. There we go. Okay. World state can subscribe to the game message. Map renderer can subscribe to the message. Entity manager needs an end step as well. And collision manager can get a physics step. We can rename this to a physics step message. So the physics step is running into things. The time passed message is how I'm going to be moving during this time. Yeah, I know, Sammy. Interference by cat. Let's turn on the cams for a minute or so while I give Sammy the attention she deserves. No, I know. I'm moving this hand and you don't appreciate it. It's a problem for all of us. But we'll all have to deal. There we go. So now we need... We're going to change it from resolve physics message to a physics step message. I know. So ultimately what we're doing here is that we're reducing the number of things that might not care about a particular message. So every behavior still cares about time passed, but behaviors don't care about most of the message types. So they don't need to get them. We can still have a handle message one that is for generic events, for events that are here, do this one thing. But those events will not be... They won't receive the exact same handling. Like, nothing should be creating a time passed message and sending it. I might have to have a master, like, static function for validating a like, is this a handleable message kind of thing. But we'll get there. Okay, so now we need a emits physics step. Click this. Have a okay. Game will emit physics step. Like that. Getting enough interfaces that we're going to switch to this indented model. Okay, so then our collision manager is going to care about that element. So on ready, we say oh, that's true. Boop. Oopsie. It's hello Sherbet. Sherbet shows up on the side table a lot more often now that I that I pulled the canvas drape off of the little doormat. that I have on that edge, because he likes that texture and likes to pull at it. Now, Sherbet greatly resists having his claws clipped, so I have to pay attention to that, since it's not a high quality rug. Or at least it's not a cat resistant rug. And his little sickles will slip into it real easy. And since he's easily startled, he might start to panic when his paw is stuck. Game dot physics step plus equals game physics step. So I'm going to call connected virtual, say check collisions. That will break the game object there. You to physics step for clarity. So for the most part, this gets a physics step message. It does its collision checks. Diagonal movement is from the player is currently faster than cardinal movement. Collision messages get sent. Okay, though. All right. We're getting there. We are getting there. Okay, so that's the physics step set up. Next, we'll need player state and inventory. Need to get subscribe to the game event. Same with world state and map render. So all of those, and then we need the end step for entity manager. Let's see. All right, let's get the time passed in these others. So we're going to go to player state. It's another node, so on ready. So this is, we are added to the tree. By this time, we're ready to go. So be services.game.time passed equals game time passed. This is a protected virtual void game time passed, which by default does nothing. We're going to remove this. We're not going to be calling update. Odd. Layer state received update. By default, update did nothing. Oh. Layer state wasn't doing anything with its messages. Like, in theory, this is what was happening, but no, we were never sending a message to it. Interesting. So this one stays. If it's a health message, it stays. Override. Time passed. Space on game time passed. So we keep this. This is an explicit relay here. Still moves around. Okay. Okay, inventory. Services game dot time passed equals base inventory. Our update call, so our base inventory has got to, yep, okay. Override. So we update. Okay. And a base inventory, we get rid of update. Raising that event will now cover inventory's time passed. Still functional. This is the tick rate thing for your weaponry. We are moving along. We are moving along. Okay, world state. It's ready, and sources dot game dot time passed plus equals game time passed. By default, we do nothing with that. Say protected virtual. And in base world state, we just relay the message on. Then in level, go to world event list. All these should currently only care about time passed. Yes. Okay, for the time being, we're just going to relay that to our world state. We have a protected override, game time passed, base one, and when we handle message, we are relaying it along. We don't care about the reply here. going to leave handle message in here. I don't know if I'm going to need this, but I'm going to leave it for now. Again, this is when it's handle message, it is you pointing at something and saying you specifically get this message. So you, this specific entity, is going to take damage. Or, group of entities, but you will iterate over each of them and hand each of them that message. Handle message is not for iterate over all entities and give each of them a message. Ideally. So in world state, we subscribed. Okay, so then in game, we can remove that. Okay, world state is still working. These would not spawn if it didn't. There's still some work ultimately to be done on this, but we've discussed previously the whole world state tick thing is going to function differently. Any sort of spawns and whatnot we may still have a world event thing, so this will still, for the most part, function as expected. But what we don't want is that eventually world state is going to be handled by particular entities living on the map and saying, okay, the player has gotten close enough to me. I am now going to start doing a thing. Exactly how that ends up working, not sure. There's going to be some wiggle there, but we'll get there. That is that triggered entity code. We were close to implementing that, and then we weren't. Okay, level when it gets... Level initializes on the first message it receives. But I feel like we can do better than that, which would remove the level ever needing to receive events itself. But the world event list... Oh, it doesn't care about the reply. The world event list inside of it can care about the reply, because that is a iterative sequence. But even that needn't be, because the different events should not be eating a message. So it's all the way down to individual events that are going to care about an actual time past happening. That would actually really clean up the process, because then an event itself can handle its own ticking, in that it's like, I come online, I go offline. Yeah, we will be circling back around to that. Then we don't need to worry. If I load up all of the events, yeah, they're all listening to time past, but the efficiency of all of them listening versus iterating over the list for every event that we get, I think is still better. Because we remove a lot of the song and dance of getting them relayed around. Okay, so that's world state, though. Let's go back to game. Now we need map renderer for time past, which is in map. No. Services rendering map. This is in our public override of ready, where we say services dot game dot time passed plus equals game time passed. At and all the way over here, this is a protected virtual. We are still going to have handle message. So let's does these do nothing with it. Protected virtual game time passed. Say map renderer. Protected override game time passed. We don't do anything with handle message. Again, there's the possibility that we will use it. So I'm going to leave it there for now. But this gives us map renderer now having the basic model. We're going to put that in all of them. Take this specific method. Kind of surprised that this one still works. I mean, we've ripped most of the guts out of it, which is, I guess, why it might still work. We may be revisiting this guy. This is using a shader to render the visible area, but it's doing it by blocks or by squares, essentially. And we're looking to avoid doing that. Tile sheets are great and all, but I kept running into issues getting them to be handled gracefully. And if I'm going to end up having to have like layers for decals to put on the map anyway, I might as well just render the map. But we'll see if we come back around, you know? For reference, this is the thing. What do that? Where is our handle message here? Put you here. And we're going to go back and find the other one. This is relevant. Handle message in each step in game. Oh, well. That was sloppy. All of this would happen on any message it received. And that's not right. This is specifically for game time passing. That should happen, and it actually doesn't need to happen as often as it does. Okay. Then the entity manager needs to handle the end step, which means the game needs to be able to emit an end step message. Delegate void end step event end step message end step. Hello, Ember. Hello. Ember tried to walk around the side of the desk, but once the cat cam ticks over, she was unable to pass by Sherbet because Ember is very non-confrontational. Sherbet is also very non-confrontational, but Ember is more so. So she had to loop around the other way. Public event end step event end step. Get the game. Hello, baby. Ember needed a lot of comforting last night because Sky was being a bully. Sky is generally a sweetheart, but he knows he can pick on Ember. If Ember actually stopped and fought back, I don't know that Sky would know how to deal with it. But she's like half his size and, like I said, non-confrontational. So if he tries to pull the I'm the big cat in charge thing, generally she just gets chomped, you know? So I must often intervene to stop him from being a bully. And then we will have down here, say end step. If it exists, we invoke the end step. And our entity manager is going to have a specific end step message. Game end step. I must type slowly because cat on right shoulder. There we go. She has disentangled. And then this one also will emit end step. So I don't know. I think it's possible. I think it's reasonable to say that entities and behavior can care about an end step. Okay, but first, this is protected virtual. Void end step. So then the individual ones, which is our base entity manager. So when we go to our existing handle message, we are not doing anything with end step in base entity manager. So now we're down to nothing in base entity manager, but we need to go into entity. And when we activate it and we attach events, we're currently looking at time passed. Dot end step. Well, actually, we don't care about the end step either. Currently, do we have anything in behaviors? Oh, here we go. Entities do care about end step. On end step, we update position, we clear proposed movement, and then we send it to components. Step, we go back to handle message. Message now does nothing. Entity manager uses it, game uses it. End step event. Entity health needs to get it, which we relayed on. Entity manager does have a case to send it along, or entity itself. Run, shouldn't be broken. Actually, let's make sure that we're properly using that in game. End step invoke, okay. For that to happen, let's check here. I've changed too much at once. Previously, entity manager called handle message entity end step. End step in the entity was previously only fired if active. All of these things should only fire if active. So let's at least correct that as well. If active. Was missing previously. One more time to be sure. What was likely happening is if time passed got sent, it would update position, and if the entity, if removal was triggered at the wrong time, if we got that message after the sprite had cleaned up, then we could get some conflicts in there. We are testing maximum load. We are showing maximum strain on the system right now. We're approaching 6,000 entities at once. 7. Almost 8. 8. I mean, 7 frames a second with 8,000 things. Most of them doing spiral motion, and we're emitting them at a super rapid pace. Pretty good. Okay, we're gonna let them fall away. Wow. That is one lucky little blob there. Actually, it implies that there's a whole lot of them right on top of each other. Let's save this for now. that over. Now look at just do bullet wind up mouse and put that on the player for now. Item for it. Item wind up mouse. Okay, well that makes sense. This will be somewhat easier to science here. Get him, boys. Okay, they are not striking at all. Wrong with physics. What did we break? What did we break? I just want to make sure that it's not the weapon that doesn't do anything here. I mean, looks like it should be correct. Let's check our collision manager here. So we know enemies were being removed because we had the collisions not being cleaned up. Actually, can make this a little cleaner. One at a time and ending at 200,000. Yeah, they're going right through them. Hey, let's check for our collision logic here. If the yarn ball is to reflect, then we should have gotten that. This is why. Okay, let's... begin an explicit handle message call. Handle it. Mice not have health? They have health 1. And they do bullet harm, so... let's put that collision back in there. Entity, and we're going to get this message. It's not what we want. We need to filter this down too. It's a health message or... art, add message, or... I want to cull this down. This is not perfect, actually. A blob is about to take a hit here. It's about to lose 2 health. So we step over it. And it was consumed. So we're going to step out here. With that, that's to the other behaviors, to component. It was neither acted on or consumed. Okay. So we got a true here. Turned our reply. True, so we step out. So we were consumed. Still returning reply. That's why. Merge. Homing behavior doesn't seem to be great at the moment, but hey. Oh, actually we can test homing behavior a little better by causing spreads to happen. Bullet lifespan. To random entity. So then if we look at our list of movements to random entity, which is then it is a move in a straight line, but is target or lock random enemy. So if we look at our get set target entity. not locked on. This would be rotate to them. Direction 2 is... That's our direction 2, is where they are. Can we adjust? Entity has speed. So if we make... here, if we make the mice slower than the blobs, they are not turning to follow. I mean, this is technically separate, but I don't know if this is where this issue necessarily lies right now. So we're just trying to figure out where. Get a time passed, we pass it along to a behavior, in particular its movement behavior. Movement behavior gets a message. It's going to go to update its target. Okay, so our entity does not have a target right now. So then we're going to try to get an entity of that category. Which we're probably going to get a null here. Yep. So we have nothing. We have tried. We don't have a local target. Our direction is still 0, 0. We're going to get a random direction for it to move in. So this, it was never able to get a target. It doesn't have one. It doesn't try to get another. Okay, so we have an entity. Okay, so unless lock on is set, we're not going to rotate 2. Actually, no, it's... Go to here. Oh, wait. Okay, it's from the entity to the target. This is rotation based, otherwise we're just going to set our direction here constantly. So this should be constantly updating because we're going to call update target. Update target happens when a behavior that is a movement gets a time passed message and has a targeter. Okay, let's make it harder for it to do that. Yeah, we need to make them slower than... Now, with this, they move half the rate. Right now, it's set to reacquire, so it will try to grab a new target, but if that's the case, it's going to veer around. weird. Target entity. Okay. We could actually improve this quite a bit by just having it subscribe to when the entity updates and decide at that time whether it needs to adjust its position. That is, does it just snap to the target using this, or does it have to rotate? We should very steadily have a local target. Let it run for a bit. Definitely getting blobs now, so we do this. Okay, we need lock on to be true for them to pivot. Is lock on, right? Yep. That's right. Do I need to make them slightly faster? Oh, wait. Rotation degrees is not set. So it defaults to 0. It will not rotate. Six, it's lock on, rotation degrees. Perfect lock. Oh, no rotation visible. We should very much see Okay. For those joining us, we have veered off into the weeds a little bit here because we don't have, or at least we aren't getting the sort of behavior that we should out of the homing mice. Okay, we're not getting lock on properly. Lock on is false, but lock on is true. On is false. Okay, so that's not getting through. There's part of our problem. Lock on is set to be true, as is rotation degrees. Oh. Derp-de-derp-dip-dip. It's not the bullet, it's the targeter that takes those. Lock random enemy has lock on is false, reacquire is true, the rotation degree of 45, but lock on needs to be true for rotation to matter. There we go. They can only turn 45 degrees per second. So their pivot rate is not fantastic. But is still reasonable. And I mean, because they're homing projectiles, even if you make them move weird, they will still try to get to their target. And if you make enough of them, then there isn't really any stopping them at that point. Even just a few at a time is more than enough to keep up, since with that turn radius, they're pretty good at hunting their targets. Not bad. Not bad. Not bad. Okay. All right. Check a couple things here. Pushing buttons. All right, I think that's progress for the day. We'll go with that. Okay, folks. Oh. Well, thank you for the follow there, Just Faith. Welcome, welcome. You are catching us right at the end. But, what we have accomplished today is, one, we figured out why our homing logic wasn't working, but that wasn't really the objective. We have shifted our infrastructure over almost entirely to a default event logic, except where it is necessary to explicitly pass a message, which in some cases is going to mean we can reduce the number of things we are technically iterating over, and should be able to get some better performance out of it. Just for testing purposes. Just kind of unleash the Kraken here. I want to see how low the number gets versus how big the number gets. Because we can normally get about right around this range as far as frames per second. Yeah. So about 7,000 things, about 8 frames a second. 7,000 things is more than we would ever expect to see. Even getting weaponry that is firing, this is 27 bullets at a time or per second. Even something like this is fantastically powerful. Like, the turn rate would have to be a lot worse, or the lifespan, or the damage, or something in this scenario, or there'd need to be way more enemies on the screen to be able to do anything about this. So, but we're getting reasonable. We're still getting solid performance results, and that's while still using node-based area. One of the things that changing to event will allow us to do is to have entities relay their time past events and whatnot, which will allow things like the visuals and the physics to detect more about what the entity is doing. So we know when the entity has raised its removed event, so the entity has been told that it is removed, and the entity calls out to everything looking at it, "I'm going away." But we also want to be able to see, like, hey, the entity just processed time past. The entity just processed a collision or anything like that. Because what that would do is allow us to do things like have more complicated collision objects that, let's say, every third of a second, like 3 times a second, it would check and say, is there anything in my forward cone that is too close? If there is, I'm going to apply a little bit of backward motion or similar, so that it can be like shoved away from walls and other similar entities. There are limits on how effective that would be, but it doesn't have to be fantastically effective to give us a sort of flocking behavior, or it's steering behavior in that case, where they sort of push away from each other as they're being pulled inward. That shouldn't be too complicated, but that's one that we would need to make sure doesn't happen too frequently. we might even be able to say that that's not part of collision, that that's a behavior that's part of their core movement. That it looks and says, hey, has it been 1/3 of a second? If it has, do a few ray casts and see, do I bump anything here? If so, apply movement. But I kind of like the idea of that being a later thing or whatever. We'll see. But anyway, progress today. I think we're probably going to have more code to do next time. We can pick back up with the physics server and get more of those shapes put in so we can start trying it out and see if it works. But yeah. All right, folks, I hope you had a good time watching with us today. If you like what you saw and would like to see more, remember to like, follow, subscribe, comment, all of that stuff. Like I said, we're planning on doing a little more coding this week easily. And I want to get more power wash and ideally some more observation duty. We got a bunch of good games on the queue here. So we need to get some time in on that, but we also need to make some coding progress. A little bit of each. We got a little bit of each. If you'd like to consider financially supporting the channel, you can do so through platform-specific means such as memberships, subscriptions, that kind of thing, as well as Patreon and Coffee. But with all of that said, I hope the rest of your day is good, and I'll see you next time.